The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Kalshi. Make real money predicting sports. Kalshi is available in every state. Also get $20 for free. Just on the promo code SGPN. That's Kalshi, promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. Currently Sunday morning, February 22nd, around 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the final in Delray Beach. This was supposed to be an episode breaking down two finals, both one for Delray, one for Rio. However, Rio had a bunch of rain yesterday. They actually had to try to finish the semifinal matchups this morning. They couldn't even do that because there was another rain issue in the Echeverry-Capriva third set. So the point is we had to punt on Rio, but either way, we are back for Delray. I know it's going to be taking place in about 4 or 5 hours. So we'll see if there's any weather issues there. I know it's a little bit closer to the actual match than we normally record, but I had to wait for lines to drop after yesterday, and now we're back this morning. Apologies, but I was watching the gold medal game. Shout out to Team USA. The point is I ended up not recording until now, so hopefully you end up catching this episode before the Paul match against Korda. Now, before we get into the actual recap of what happened on Saturday, a reminder, you support the show by subscribing on YouTube, and you can also check out the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So a couple ways to support the show: subscribe on YouTube, leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store. A lot of great Tennis Game Pockets merch on the SGPN merch store. We have shirts, we have sweatshirts, we have mugs. We also have hats now, so check out the options that we have. Very affordable. Think you'll like the choices. Plus, a reminder, check out the SGPN app, free to download on the App Store. So if you don't want to go through Spotify or Apple, if you want to just get through all of the podcasts in one easy location, check out the SGPN app, free to download in the App Store. So starting off with the recap of the lock and dog picks for Doha, not even close for the lock and dog. We basically doubled down on the over, and that did not happen as Alcaraz curb stomped Fees in straight sets. For the lock, we ended up running back the team total over 12.5. Didn't get there as Fees got destroyed. For the dog, took the over 21.5 games, and Alcaraz went God mode, and that ended up losing handily too. So the bright side, though, we did have Alcaraz to win Doha at plus 130. We went with the classic bet Sinner and Alcaraz, nobody else strategy, and that worked out once again. Alcaraz has now won 30 straight outdoor matches. So Alcaraz has been rolling. The last time he lost an outdoor match was actually Wimbledon. So Alcaraz keeps rolling. He played his best match of the event in the final. It was pretty annoying because I was lower on Fees throughout the entire tournament, and he kept burning me. And the one time I actually chose to trust him, he no-showed the entire match. But Alcaraz did play extremely well. I'm not going to fully chalk it up to Fees playing terribly. Alcaraz just hit the ground running. Simply put, Fees had no chance. And a fun fact, the match, the 6-0, 6-0 match between Swiatek and Anisimova in the Wimbledon final took longer than Alcaraz's win against Fees yesterday. So there you go. Alcaraz beat him handily. I think it was in 54 minutes. It was a bloodbath. Fees slammed the racket. That was basically the highlight of his entire day. It took 50 minutes, give or take. It was ugly, and Alcaraz ran through him like a knife through butter. So either way, never really close for the lock and dog. The lock and dog picks have not been very good recently, but another outright. The outrights have been great, and we'll get into the preview of the Delray final. We have another outright available there. So if you've been tailing the outrights, you've been making a lot of money. But unfortunately, the lock and dog picks have not been very good lately, which I know is what most people care about. But hopefully, you've been backing the outrights as well, because we have had some success so far this year. Anyway, looking at the actual recap, though, of the other matches that we ended up seeing for Saturday. Once again, they had to move the actual semis in Rio because there was a massive rain issue. So getting into the recap there, because they did complete one of the matches, saw Tabilo, who ended up beating Buse in straight sets this morning, which is a bit annoying for me because I thought about taking Tabilo at around 25-1 pre-tournament, and I decided not to do it at the last minute. So that is a little bit annoying because I initially had notes on Tabilo, and I ended up not taking him, which kind of sucks. But either way, point is Tabilo is into the final. As for Echeverry and Capriva, we don't know yet. It's tied 1-1, and they're going to go to a third set once it stops raining. So a really bad scheduling spot, though, for the winner of that match, because once again, you're going to have to play a set against the other guy. Then you're not going to have much time to recover because you're supposed to do the matches in the morning, and then you end up having the title match at some point in the afternoon. So a couple of hours gap there. You don't have that luxury anymore. So keep an eye out for whoever wins that match between Echeverry and Capriva being in a pretty, I'd say, tough spot in terms of recovery time. Tabilo should have a pretty solid edge in that final, but we'll see once again who he plays in that matchup. And moving on to Delray, to recap what happened in the semis there. Caboli was competitive early in the first set against Korda. Then Korda kind of ran away with the tie break, but either way, a point is once Caboli did end up losing in the tie break, he completely checked out, and Korda won the second set 6-1. So nice win for Korda there. He was on a challenger a couple weeks ago, lost to Sfaja in the final. Now he's back, and he's in a final for an ATP event. So nice job by him recovering and for making some adjustments in the minors, basically, to make it back to a title match in the main level. So good for him. For his opponent, you had a pretty competitive matchup there between Paul and Tien. Paul lost the first set, and then he was able to get the job done there in the third. Not too much drama, as he was able to break pretty quickly in the third set. He did have to fight off 4 break points in the 3-1 game and a break point in the 4-2 game. So there was a bit of sweat there. He also fought off a break point in the 5-3 game. So Tien had chances to get back on serve, could not convert, and eventually Paul did get the job done as he ended up making it to the final. Now for us, we had outrights on Tien and Paul, so we had a guaranteed finalist, and we actually got the better price guy into the final because Paul was a bigger price pre-tournament than Tien was. So for the actual looking at the prices here for Delray as a reminder. So we had for set 333, who ended up losing to Paul in straight sets the round prior in the quarters. We had Tien at 650, which did not get there, but we sacrificed Tien for the greater good as we had Paul at 11-1. So once again, said before, we won an outright with Alcaraz, not going to victory lap too much because we had Alcaraz and Sinner. So we made, I don't know, about $5-10, but either way, point is no point in betting anybody else when those two are in the same event. But we did take Paul at 11-1 in Delray. So a chance to hit a very nice outright. I know Paul is favored in the match against Korda. I'll get into those odds in a second. But the point is, we do have the favorite, not by a lot, but still, we have the betting favorite in the final at 11-1. So overall, great price. Really can't complain. And hopefully Paul gets the job done against Korda. But either way, if you want to hedge, you can. But we do have a chance to win 2 out of the 3 tournament outrights for this week. So hopefully Paul gets the job done at 11-1. Anyway, nothing else to really talk about. Once again, the Rio schedule is completely out of sorts because of a monsoon, basically. So we'll see how that ends up going. And besides that, nothing else to add. Go Team USA. Anyway, before we get into the actual breakdown of the final in Delray between Paul and Korda, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Kalshi. So if you want to make real money predicting sports, Kalshi is available in every single state. Real money prediction market, so check it out. Ton of options for trading on your favorite sports. Plus, you can also use different markets as well, like politics, entertainment, and even the weather. And on top of that, if you are new to Kalshi, great sign-up deal. Get $20 for free when you sign up with the promo code SGPN. That's Kalshi, K-A-L-S-H-I, code SGPN for free $20 to sign up at Kalshi. We're also brought to you by Rebet, which is the #1 social sports book and casino out there, available in 35 plus states, including Texas and California. Get on the action with Rebet, plus 100% purchase match up to $100 with the code SGPN. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of what happened in Doha in the title match, as well as what happened in the semis for Delray and for basically half of Rio. Time to move on into the preview of the final in Delray between Korda and Paul, taking place at around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So for this match here, you have pretty close odds, but Paul's still favored, -120, give or take. I see Korda at around even money. For the over-under, I see 23.5 games, 22.5. The over is -140. So you can take it, but either way, point is, it is basically 23.5 if you want to go for even odds on both sides. For the actual spread, -0.5 a game for Paul at around -114. Korda plus half a game is -112. For the set spread, Paul straight sets is +205. Korda straight sets is +245. And both guys to win a set is very, very juiced. Now, for the actual over 2.5 sets. I see plus 130 on the over. I see about minus 160 on the under. For the tiebreak, I see about minus 110 on both sides. For the team total, I see Paul over 12.5, so around minus 135. Court over 12.5, so around minus 125. And for some other, I'd say, miscellaneous options there, you have the total breaks of serve over-unders at 3.5. Paul to have the most breaks is plus 105. Quarter to have the most breaks is plus 128, and a tie is plus 575. Now, for the actual match, have to mention the actual head-to-head history between the two of them. So, historically speaking, it has been competitive. Paul is currently ahead, but it's close. Quarter's ahead 4-2, but it is pretty close. So, Paul did win two of the last three. Korda did win the first three meetings between them, and then Paul, once again, did win two of the last three. I will point out they faced off one time back in this event in Delray. It was in 2021, so very dated. It was the first meeting ever between them, and Korda did win in 3 sets. So can't really take much from it, but they have played each other before on this court. Now, for the meetings, no meetings last year. Both meetings were on grass, actually, back in 2024. And they'd split those. So you're looking at Paul, who so far in the event has been vulnerable, but he has been surviving. He dropped a set against TN. He ended up dropping a set in the first round against Mutet, and he was down a break, actually, in the third set as well. And he came back and he won. Beat Walton. Walton had like 5 set points in the first set, and Paul fought him off and won in straights. And then he buried Fritz in his easiest match of the entire event. For Korda, he's been looking pretty good as well. Beat Kaboli in straight sets. Beat Rude, lost the first set there, came back and won in 3. Beat Mickelson in straight sets. Should have dropped the set there as Mickelson served for the set, had multiple set points, and choked it away. But either way, nice win there for Korda in straight sets. And he beat McDonald, who's a challenger player at this point in his career, in straight sets. Now, Korda did look good entering the event. He did beat Zhang and beat Tiafoe in straight sets in Dallas. Then he had Fritz on the ropes in the third set tiebreak in Dallas, and he choked it away. But either way, point is Korda almost made a very deep run in Dallas. Fell a bit short there, but he showed glimpses of solid play, and that has carried over into the final. Now, for the actual match in itself, do I think the odds are correct? I would say yes. I think Paul should be a slight favorite. I think we'd agree based on the consistency. Paul is a more consistent player than Korda, even though he can be a head case as well. But either way, I do think Paul should be the favorite. I think the prices seem about right to me. Now, I do think it's going to be a war. I don't see it being, once again, a very straightforward match one way or another. I think no matter who wins the match, I am picking a very competitive battle. So first things first, I like the over. I think you're going to end up seeing a couple of what could be very, very unpredictable sets. I think you might see each player self-destruct at different points. We have seen Paul have some issues closing sets out. We have seen Korda have issues mentally, having some lapses and punting away a service game here or there. I think it will be a very, very close match either way. For the odds in itself, I think for the sake of what I think is basically a coin flip, I would consider Korda, but I don't think I'd actually bet it because, once again, we have Paul at 11-1. So I feel good about the odds. When you're looking at basically a pick'em and we have 11-1, I have no value on Paul at this point. I think that it's going to be a very competitive matchup. I don't mind the team total angle instead because I do think 3 sets is actually in the realm of possibility here. And I do think that looking at what could be a couple of 6-4s in there, mixed in maybe with a 6-3, I do think you're looking at a spot where this should go pretty long. So I didn't mind the potential team total over parlay if you want to get greedy. Now, plus 130 for over 2.5 sets is still a pretty good price in general. But if you wanted to go for the team total same game parlay, courtesy of Caesars, you can get the same game parlay over 12.5 for both players' team total, plus 204 on Caesars, which I do like the price. I think that is definitely appealing. I see that Matt's mentioning that Korda's been great up to the final before, and he's really bad in finals. You're not wrong. I think Korda's a head case. So I think if I had to go for, once again, my prediction to win, I will not be hedging my Paul outright of 11-1. I will pick Paul to win, but I do think Korda can make this match quite competitive before eventually losing. I think Paul will find a way over the finish line. I think Korda, the common theme that I've noticed with his entire career, and I've tweeted about it, on a big point, there is a pretty high percentage there will be a Korda unforced error. And I think that even though Paul can occasionally be frustrating, I'm aware of it. It took him 11 match points to cash our money line for the parlay against Mutet, for example. I do think I trust Paul more in the longer rallies to not self-destruct and to keep the ball in play. I think it will be a close match once again, but I do think if you're asking which player I'm picking to blink first in a big high-pressure moment, the answer will be Korda. Korda is higher on my clown list than Paul, so I am going to go with Paul to win. But I think it will be fun. I think it will be full of drama, and I do think there will be openings for Korda to win the match. But I will pick him to blink like he normally does in big spots. As Matt's mentioning, his finals record is not very good. And the last time we saw him in a final, he lost to Svaja in a challenger. So once again, I do think that Paul will find a way to get it done. He has never won this title before. He lost in the final a couple years ago. I think he gets it over the finish line here, and I think he ends up getting the job done. But I do think it will go 3. I think it will not be easy either way, and I do think that Paul eventually finds a way to get the job done in another war, like he did against TN, for example, in the semis. Now, Sashi agrees that the Korda team total over might be worth a look instead because of the better serve and the hold rate, and if he ends up winning a set, you're probably in good shape. But I do think if I was going to take Korda, it would be the team total instead because you can win that even if he loses. And the fact that the spread is a half a game and the money line's plus 100, you can still get the Korda team total on Caesars 12.5 at minus 115. I would much rather sacrifice 15 cents to get a Korda team total where he can lose the match and still go over, as opposed to betting him to actually win the match, which we know is never a fun experience if you have money on Korda. So either way, I do think it will be close. I don't mind that, once again, team total parlay for Korda and Paul each to go over the 12.5 total games, team total games. That is at plus 204. I don't mind that as a bit of a longer shot, but I do think it's going to be a fun match. I will pick Paul, but once again, it will not be easy. I see it being stressful, and I see it coming down to the wire. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the final in Delray. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the actual breakdown of the lock and dog picks, a reminder, we are brought to you by our sponsor, which is Underdog Fantasy, to be covered for pick'em entries for every single sport. Get in on the action with Underdog, chance to win up to 5,000 times your entry. You can pick higher or lower on player stats. Mix and match your sports as well. You can use tennis on those as well if you want to do some entries with tennis. And a reminder, Underdog also has a brand new offer to customers. Play just $5, 75 bucks bonus funds. It's on the promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. They've been on a heater recently for college basketball and for the NBA. Super easy to sign up for. Run predictions off the house model and make your own predictions with the sliders as well. And a reminder, you can also check out the model building in a couple of different ways. Build your own from scratch. Use the leaderboards. You can take other people's models that have been successful and simply use those exact models as well. Or you can use the Rhythm House model, and where Rhythm just give you plays directly from their own model. A couple ways to experiment with model building for betting. And a reminder, if you want to go premium with your membership, use the code SGPN25. We download the app for a nice 25% off your first month. That's Rhythm, RATHMM, code SGPN25 for a quarter first month at Rhythm. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the final in Delray between Korda and Paul. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, it's going to sound dangerous, but I do think this price is too cheap. I am going to go with the tie-break angle. I will take no tie-breaks in the match at minus 110. Now, I want to point out that a big reason for this is based on the recent form of both guys, and 2 is the head-to-head trend between the two of them. So, for reference, Paul has really not been to many tie-breaks recently. There has been no tiebreaker in 12 of Paul's last 13 sets. So Paul's been immune, basically, to tiebreaks in the entire event, and even the event before this. I do think that, once again, Paul's a guy who we know can break himself. He can break others as well. I think he can find openings against Korda's serve, assuming Korda's first serve percentage is not insanely high. But once again, 12-1 to the no tiebreak in the last 13 sets, I think is pretty appealing there. Korda, for a big serve, has not had many tie breaks either. He had a tiebreak against Kaboli in the first set yesterday. He did have 2 set points before that, and he did not convert. So he almost avoided a breaker there too. But 7 of Korda's 9 sets in this event have not had a tie break either. So once again, both guys have been breaking, and I do think that can be a theme that we see in the final as well. Now for the main trend that I'm going to use for this play. They've played 17 career sets. Once again, 6 career meetings, 17 career sets. No tie break is 16-1 in the sets. So you've only seen 1 career set out of 17 that has actually gone to a tie break in the head-to-head. So I do think with the head-to-head suggesting that you will see breaks involved. I see a couple of 6-4s maybe. I think you might end up seeing a close set that maybe features a break late. But either way, with the hit rates involved and with the pricing in itself, I do think minus 110 is a very cheap price. We're not looking at 2 phenomenal servers. I think both guys can be broken. I think we will see maybe a bit of a sweat for one set where maybe we end up getting a break in like a 4-4 game or something. But for the actual trends, I do think minus 110 is a very cheap price. I'll take it as the lock for the show. Give me the no tie break at minus 110. For the dog, I am going to go back to the sets. I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. Paul's been involved in a bunch of long sets or a bunch of long matches recently. 4 of his last 6 matches have not ended in straight sets. I will point out the head-to-head has also been competitive. It is 4-2 in favor of Korda. Couple of close sets that ended up resulting in straight set wins, but 3 of the 6 career meetings have not ended in straight sets, including the only meeting in their careers in this event in Delray that was a 3-setter. But I do think with the hit rate in the head-to-head being 50% and you are getting plus 130, the 2 meetings that we saw recently, about 2 years ago, those were both on grass. Those were both in straight sets. So if you want to take those out of the head-to-head, that does mean that 3 of the 4 hardcourt meetings between them have not ended in straight sets. So based on that, and based on, once again, Paul being a guy who can have some ups and downs, same with Korda, I do think you're looking at what should be a good price for what could be a marathon. Give me the over 2.5 sets of plus 130 as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog picks. The lock's going to be on the no tiebreaker at minus 110. For the dog, give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. And now it's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the preview of the upcoming events here. We have 3 more. We have Acapulco, we have Dubai, and we have Santiago. So keep an eye out for the next event or the next episode, which should happen tonight. So keep an eye out tonight for that episode. But either way, till next time, hopefully you like, subscribe. Hopefully you end up checking out the podcast and the SGPN app as well. Check out the merch store. I see you lifted, mentioning that he likes Korda Moneyline in general. Look, the point is whether Korda wins or not, I do think you're looking at what should be a competitive matchup, which is why I am going with the over 2.5 sets. I don't see Korda coasting for me. I know you're mentioning the value being 2-0 at plus 205. Maybe, but I personally prefer his team total over. I think if he ends up winning in straight sets, you probably do get a longer set involved. I don't see a straightforward win for Korda personally, but I understand your angle for the sake of his form in this event. To answer Ginger's question, yes, I'll be back for Dubai and Acapulco and Santiago. So we have 2 more hardcourt events and a clay event. We'll do that later on today. Anyway, till next time, good luck to all.